To be honest, I'm kind of thinking about the game all day, every day since I've gotten it, because there's just so much possibility, and yeah, that sounds super corny and cringe,
and I don't care.
I don't know if you have heard of this little indie game called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It kind of kicks ass. In case you didn't know, Tears of the Kingdom is the follow-up to Breath of the Wild, which came out in 2017 alongside the release of the Nintendo Switch. Really just set the gaming world on fire, as this one is doing currently. Breath of the Wild really set the precedent for open world games going forward, and you can see its influence in pretty much every release since. There was a lot of pressure riding on this game's shoulders and a lot of hype to deliver on, and I gotta say, I feel like they over-delivered on it. I'm not even near halfway done with the game. There's just so much I've already done, and I had to talk about it. I had to come out here and give my initial impressions on how far I am in the game right now. It's just a blast, and so I want to do like a full in-depth review of a lot of the different facets of the game later on, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there on the internet and drive a discussion around this game, and I really want to know where they're going to go with the next entry, because they got a lot to live up to the next one. Now, there's going to be some minor spoilers within this, just kind of discussing some of the game's mechanics, so a bit of a spoiler warning, I guess, but I'm not going to like go crazy with it. I just want to talk about some of the abilities that you get and some of the items that you pick up throughout the game, so you're kind of warned. With that said, let's kind of get some of the complaints out of the way a little bit before I kind of want to gush about the rest of the game. Now, none of the complaints here are necessarily something that I feel takes away from the experience, but is more of just kind of a hassle, some busy work, stuff that I feel could just, if it was gone, it might make the experience a little more fluid, but it doesn't overall hurt it in my opinion. I just wish it was a little different. Now, I hate to disappoint, but the weapon durability is still here, and it is still pretty low, but the game gives you a lot more tools to not just get stuck with what you had. I remember playing through the Breath of the Wild, and those early hours, you're really kind of struggling to find a tool to use. You feel pretty helpless. This game gives you a lot more powers, a lot more agency over your character right from the start, similar to how Jedi Survivor was, which was a part I loved about that game. It doesn't just knock you down and make you work for it all over again. Zelda on paper does the same thing. Literally in the story, Link loses all his health, armor, items, everything. And he wakes up naked again in front of a stranger, and he has to relearn who he is in a way. But the game doesn't make you feel like you have been knocked down to the bottom. You are still given these abilities that let you manipulate the world the way you want, really just tailor the experience to yourself. When I was stuck with a tough boss battle, there were a few instances where I felt helpless. I always felt like there was a way to maneuver around, even if it wasn't very conventional. Now, personally, I don't feel like the weapon durability is a huge detractor from the experience. It does just more encourage me to get more experimental with what we have. They really make you use every item in the game, and for better or worse, it makes your combat encounters a sight to behold. Now, something that might be disappointing for some people out there is the same map carries over from Breath of the Wild, but is significantly different. It's like revisiting the neighborhood you grew up in as a child. There's something familiar about it, but it absolutely does not look the same. And that's kind of how this map is. There's a lot of different features. There's a lot of like items to discover, and not to mention there's like 3 maps here versus 1, which really adds a lot of verticality to it. So on the surface, this does strike you as a very similar experience, but it couldn't be further from that. They really just totally transform the open world here into something that is just way more engaging to play with, and I can't imagine going back to Breath of the Wild without this and the new abilities that we get, but we'll touch on the abilities a little bit later. I think the depths map is a really cool idea. I can't wait to explore more of it. Making you have to use these light what the hell are they called? Making you use these plants that light up the environment was a really unique idea, and then the floating islands map is a really cool idea. The way you have to traverse each one of these and get a little creative with the way that you do it each time is a little different. The shrines are really fun. They're really different each and every time and really force you to use all the abilities that you're given in the game. Again, we're going to touch on abilities because I can't talk enough about how fun some of them are. Just the way that each map really interacts with each other, it feels like one massive seamless experience, and I don't know if I'll ever finish it, honestly. Now, this game is huge, and there's a lot to do in it. It would not be nearly as fun if it weren't for the abilities that you're given. The first one being Ultra Hand lets you move objects around and reposition them to the spot that you want. Pretty straightforward, self-explanatory, and really cool because it functions in every portion of the map. It's not restricted to certain areas. You get the gist. Fuse ability was the next one that really impressed me. Really sets this apart from Breath of the Wild. It makes it so that you don't feel as helpless through any section of the game. It really is up to you to just choose to walk away and approach it differently later on versus having to give up because an enemy is too tough. Rarely does that happen to me. I'm probably about 30 hours into the game at this point, and I feel like I have a pretty good scope for that. The fuse ability allows you to enhance your shields or your weapons with whatever you choose. Like you could take a group of mushrooms, glue them to the front of your shield, and then pogo stick all the way down a mountain with it. Really allows you to get up in the air, and you get the air time. You're able to land an arrow in slow motion that has a fire choo-choo jelly on the front of it that explodes and lights the enemy on fire. You're implementing all these different features of the game that are all playing off of each other in a really organic manner, and it just works so well every single time. Rarely am I like actually frustrated that I can't get past a portion of the game. I'm more just excited to experiment with it each and every time I die. It really is rewarding to finally feel like you overcame the challenge. The abilities in this game just continue to impress me, and I can't wait to see how much more creative I can get with it as the story progresses. And the rewind ability, it's really cool. It allows you to freeze time, select an object, and then retrace its tracks, and is a really cool gameplay mechanic for getting around the environments. There's some portions where you're having to jump into these bubbles of water, and they carry you from one platform to another. There would literally have been not too many other ways to get there, but again, the game gives you the room to do that. The game gives you the ability to just bypass this sequence that was totally planned out. Oh, and then the ascend ability is really damn cool. This is almost kind of like a game breaker, but like totally on purpose. The environments are kind of designed to use it, but you never feel like you're forced to. It just really helps you bypass the game. And one thing I thought was really cool about how this mechanic came about was the fact that it was initially just a developer tool to help them just get out of the caves that they're designing versus having to backtrack through it, just really becoming a time saver. It always feels like that ace in your pocket, kind of a last resort in a way, but also my first option in a lot of puzzles just because it was so fun to use. I think that's just such a cool idea. I can't wait to see how they expand upon it on a sequel. It feels like they kind of maxed it out with this one, but again, it kind of felt that way with Breath of the Wild, so who knows, we're probably going to be impressed again. There's a lot of people that are excited about this one for good reason. It does unravel all the content in a really organic manner. It never feels like too much in my experience. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments below. Like, subscribe, check out my last couple videos. Had a great time making them, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks.